Hello everyone, welcome back to Crafts by the Bow. This week I'm concentrating on some of the designer series paper, and at the moment Stampin Up have an offer where if you buy 3 packs of some of the DSP from the annual catalogue, you get another pack free. So I've been stocking up. It's not Christmas paper or any of the holiday paper, but I know that I've got lots of birthday cards to make and anniversary cards. And even if I keep it till January, the offer won't be on in January, but I will have got my extra pack free. So today's paper is the Come Sail Away Suite paper, but I'm going to team it with the Rustic Retreat. Now, what I seem to always forget is that the paper doesn't have to go with the stamp set that you buy it with. Sometimes I think, oh, this is the nautical suite, I just keep this paper for the nautical suite. But what I forget to do is look on the back. And often you will find that it may be a pattern on the back and just a contrast like stripes or polka dots or just colours, and you can use it for any of our stamp sets. So that's what I need to remind myself about, and to try and remember to use it with other stamp sets as well. Now, I was inspired for my card today by my good friend Tamara Bertram, who has Tamara's Trailblazers, and she sent me this card as part of one of our swaps. And I know if you've seen my videos before, I know I've spoken about the swaps before, but this was her swap, and it was a Christmas card using the Rustic Retreat. Well, I used this, I was inspired to use this, and I already made a card that I want to send to my daughter. And Anne-Marie, if you're around, don't watch. So the card that I made for her, she's very busy doing a lot of her nursing work, and she's just got a place at a university in the States to do a further practicum after her nurse practitioner. And I wanted her to know that we were thinking about her and that she doesn't need to worry because she's a very bright, capable young lady. And I loved this sentiment, the one that says, "You are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, smarter than you think, and loved more than you know." And that's from A.A. Milne, Winnie the Pooh. And she actually loves Winnie the Pooh. So it was just the perfect sentiment for her. And so I used Tamara's design and I changed the paper. This is from the Pressed Petals suite. And I used a different sentiment too. Now this time I'm going to do exactly the same layout because it's a brilliant layout. But I'm going to make it a birthday card. So let me show you what I've started and what I've done already. On my thin Whisper White card, I've just stamped this house or little log cabin, and I've stamped it in early espresso. And I'm just going to colour it in really simply. It's not a difficult one to colour, and it doesn't need to be sort of too detailed or, too much. So I've got my light crumb cake, and I'm just going to go over all the pieces of the little cabin. I'm not doing anything too precise. The only bit I'm not colouring are the windows. I'll get back to the windows in a minute. So this is a very simple, rustic kind of a cabin, and my colouring is the same. Okay, so all of it has a base coat. I'm just going to do the top part of the windows where there's that little shadow, but I'm leaving the rest of it white. And then with my dark crumb cake, I'm just going to go over where Stampin' Up have already put the shadows in. And it will all sort of meld in together in a minute. So anywhere where they've got lots of lines that show it's the shadow, I'm just doing a little bit extra with my dark crumb cake. And I'm going to do the window frames with it. And a little cross part in the middle. Don't worry if your colouring goes inside a little bit, inside the windows, doesn't matter. I'm going to colour a few of these little rocks. I'm not doing any kind of a pattern, just colouring a few. Okay, then I'm going to go back over with my light crumb cake, and I'm going to use the brush end. And when you do use these pens, remember not to push hard. They're a very, very soft, fine tip. And if you push hard, you'll find that the pointy end disappears and it goes more like a paintbrush then. So I'm just going over the whole thing again, and look how that darker crumb cake is starting to blend in. So it just looks like you have a few shadows. I love these blends. Now here, where you might think, oh, that's a little bit too dark still, go over it again with the light one and see how it's just melting into the paper, just disappearing. So for very little effort, you've now got lots of different colours in there. Oh, let me just go over that little piece of the roof. I was thinking it was a tree, but it's a little piece of the roof. There we are. And then I'm using, I nearly used my shaded spruce green, but it was a little bit too bright for what I wanted. So what did I get out? The old olive. Right. And I'm going to do a couple of the trees in a lighter colour, the ones that look further away. I'm using my light old olive on that. Okay. And then I'm going to use my dark old olive on the two trees at either side, because they look like they're a little bit closer and I want them to just appear a slightly different colour. You can see I'm not being terribly careful. I don't want it to look like a print. I want it to look like it's a handmade card. Sort of a bit rustic, you know, that I've coloured it myself. It could almost be painted, but it's not a perfect print kind of picture. Okay, now for the little bit of smoke coming out of the chimney, I'm going to use my Wink of Stella. And when you colour with this, the ink will bleed on the inside. If that's going to bother you, you could always colour over with a different colour. You could use the grey, you could use a blend, but it's not going to bother me, so I'm just using my Wink of Stella. Make sure it's primed. And then I'm just going to go lightly over the whole of the smoky part of it. What I like about Wink of Stella as well is, let me get an ink and just show you. Here's the grey granite. That just happened to be the first one nearby. If you use your Wink of Stella and just go onto the ink pad a little bit, you can colour like this as well. And when that ink is drying, I'm not sure if you can see, it has a very slight glittery accent to it, and that's because the Wink of Stella has all that glitter in it. Let's pop that back. Okay, I'm just going to clean my brush here. There we go. Okay, so there's all the colouring that I'm doing for that. Just quick and simple. Then what I did was I used my largest stitched circle. I put it over just where I wanted it. You could have the whole of the scene at the bottom and you could colour more green here. I wanted mine in the middle, so I just popped it on like that and I ran it through the big shot, and you can see here I've already cut one out, and that's the one that I've got here. So I coloured it just the same. Okay, it's just the same. It looks a little bit darker here. I think I just went over it again with the light crumb cake. I didn't use any different colours or anything. It's just that it never looks quite the same twice. just depending on how much of the crumb cake you use going over it. So this is my decoration piece already done. Now for my card base, I have just a half piece of our cardstock, and it's cut at 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4. Okay, and this is the thicker. Remember I said this I'd done on the thin. I like to do the colouring and everything on the thinner Whisper White, but when I'm making a card base, I like this thicker base. Okay, so I'm just going to pop this on here, ready to do our stamping. And I've got my early espresso again. And I'm going to use the Happy Birthday. And I've already popped it on my block. Okay, let's move it along a little bit so that you can see better. And I'm going to stamp at the right hand side. And I want it to be sort of in this bottom third. And I really want it to be over to the right hand side. There, so that's just perfect. That's just where I wanted it. Let's pop that one down. And then while I've got the ink out, I'm going to actually stamp something on the inside. And I'm going to use the large stag deer. And I'm just going to ink it there with the same early espresso. It's a very juicy new early espresso pad. And I'm getting quite a lot of ink on it, as you can see, so I must remember not to push so hard on it. Okay, I've cleaned that off. I've just got my wipes out, little baby wipes out at the moment, because my chamois have all just gone into the washing machine, and so I'm just using a wipe for now. Okay, I'm going to leave that to dry for a second, just because that ink is so very, very wet. And I don't need those anymore. But next I'm going to need my DSP. And as I showed you earlier, I've got it from the Come Sail Away suite, and I'm going to use the back. Now, I've decided that I'm going to use this green. It's not the same green as the colouring I did here. It's actually Mossy Meadow, but I think it looks really good with that. I don't think it sort of goes against it or anything. I think it coordinates really nicely. So I'm going to use this side, and I've cut this at 2 inches by 5 inches. And I'm going to use my triple banner punch. I'll just open it up. And for me, it doesn't really matter which way this goes. I don't know. Some of the pieces had a little bit of writing on, I think. But I couldn't make out on this piece whether the writing was upside down, back to front, or where it was. So I don't think anybody else would either. I want to have this piece though at the front and at the top, because I just like that little starbursty effect. So I'm just going to pop it into the triple banner punch all the way down and trim. And sometimes if I'm stamping a lot of the same card and cutting a lot of the same paper, I will save these pieces so that I can use them as a decoration on a card. So I am going to save that because I'm going to make a few of these cards. Okay. Now I'm sure our ink here will be dry. Yeah, it looks dry. So I'm just going to, with my fast fuse or with your liquid glue or snail, whatever works for you, I'm just going to attach this. I'm going to leave a little edge down the left hand side, but I'm just going to attach it so that my edge at the top and the bottom is the same. Okay, and then my decorating piece with the house on, I'm going to put dimensionals on the back. If you didn't want to have this raised up, you could just glue on top. But when it's raised up, it just gives a little bit more dimension. Makes it look just that bit nicer. Now for my stag that I've put inside, I'm not actually going to colour it, because if I colour it with the blends, it will go through onto the back just like this has done, and I don't want that to show up. and I don't think I need to colour it. I like it like this. When I made the one for my daughter, I popped the little bear inside and I didn't colour it. What I did was I used my Wink of Stella to go over the bear, just a little bit shiny. And for the green, instead of using a blend, I just popped the Wink of Stella onto an ink pad, like I showed you with the grey, and I just did those little bits of green. But I don't want to colour this one at all. Okay, so this I'm just going to have offset on my card, make sure it's straight. And I'm going to use some of our linen thread to go around the card. I'm just going to measure it. You need to have enough to tie a bow. So let's just cut this off. And the linen thread, because it's wrapped round a piece of card, it often has these little kinks in it. You see here and here. And all I do is I get my thumbnail and my finger and I just go down the whole thing. And that makes it fairly straight. You haven't got the kinks in anymore. You could probably do it with a pair of scissors as well, like you would if you're using that curling ribbon. But for me, this is just perfect. I'm going to tie a little knot, and this one, I want the bow part to be sort of near the top here. And to hold that, I don't want to put a glue dot on it because it's very narrow. So I'm just using my little tweezers. Ooh, I was using those, she said, and then dropped it. Okay, so I'm just going to pull it to a knot and pop these in like that, just so that it holds it a little bit. If you wanted to actually use a glue dot, you could roll the glue dot a little bit between your finger and your thumb. And that would work as well, and you wouldn't see so much of it on the card. I don't want mine to be sort of the glue dot sticking onto the envelope or anything. And I don't want it to be a real girly kind of bow with all pretty little frills and things. I just want it to be a rustic looking kind of thing. Okay, I'm just going to cut this for there. Oh, that bow's upside down, that's why it wouldn't stay. So I had it upside down. I'm just going to make it a little tiny bit shorter. Okay, now I want to put some of our self-adhesive sequins on. And the green ones would go really nicely. But on here, you see I have these darker green ones, and what I did was I used this brown one and I just used the blender pen that I'd used for the trees, and I just coloured 3 of them. Nothing fancy. I just coloured 3 of them, waited for them to dry. It does take a little bit to dry because the blender pen is quite wet, and as soon as they were dry, that's what I used. On this one, no, I think I'm going to use the ones I've just coloured. I like that green. Let me move these ones out of the way, and actually just going to pop them on. I'm going to put, let's see, I'm actually going to put 1 on here and 2 on the card here. Might still be a little bit wet, so just be careful that you don't smear it onto your card. There. And there we are. That's my rustic retreat card, my happy birthday card, inspired by Tamara Bertram and made with some of the paper from the Sail Away Suite. Now, it doesn't really look like it's nautical at all, does it? It just looks like a land map. So I'm going to try and remember to use my paper for stamps other than that which comes in the suite. Okay, so thank you very much everybody for watching me. Later this week I will be making another card with DSP just to show you how versatile it is, and the whole card is made from DSP with just a little piece of card on the back to write on and a little piece of card on the front with a picture. So I hope you'll join me again. Thanks ever so much, everybody, and see you all again soon. Bye bye.